This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
There he is, Matt Verderame, ready to start off hour number 2. How you doing, my man? You feeling good?
I'm good. My youngest daughter woke me up at 5:20 this morning, so could have done without that. But we're living, we're surviving, we're okay. How are you?
That happened to me the last 2 mornings. It wasn't my daughter. I just woke up like around 4:45, and I never went back to sleep again.
Oh,
but no, it's my problem that I'm at right now. I've been in my house for over a month because I can't move because of my foot, my operation. So I've been in a boot and so I live on a bed basically because I can't walk, I can only hop around or whatever. So I end up taking naps throughout the day because I'm watching television. I'll just fall asleep or whatever. And so when it comes to nighttime or sleeping, I can't, today I was lucky. Today I slept till 6:30 and I woke up and I was like, all right, well, whatever. I got a couple extra this time around. So I feel you. But it's just, I got 2 more weeks of hell and then hopefully I'm out of this boot.
There you go. Well, good. I hope you get out of the boot. I hope it works out for you. I contemplated giving my kid away this morning when I heard her at 5:20. I was like, are you serious with this? Like who made you like this? So I was not thrilled. And then she was loud enough. She woke up my oldest daughter. And at that point, it was off the tracks. So here I am.
That is awesome. All right. So we've got a torn fan base, I guess, because of the whole Christian Wilkins thing. Right. Even though I warned them for months that he was going to get released and there wasn't going to be a tag. So I said it for months here that not happening. So we nailed that again on that one. And to me, I actually kind of broke it down. If you look at his 9 sacks, they came practically all of them against bad teams. And he really hasn't been a sack artist. And if you want $25 million, I got to give it to a guy that's constantly going to get me those sacks. I just don't believe he's that guy. Good, very good player, but not a great player. I'm not paying you great money. I don't have a problem letting him go. Your thoughts from an outsider's point of view on the Christian Wilkins situation?
So I guess kind of like your fan base. I'm a little torn. On one hand, I do think he's a very good football player. I've thought that for years, not just this past year, because he is so good inside on all downs. So I think he's a very, very good player. I think he also makes the rest of that front better because you have to give him attention. I also do think it is true that as a pass rusher, last year far and away was the best year he's had. There's no arguing that if you look at his sack totals and some of the other metrics. I think he's probably worth right in that $22 to $25 million range based on cap going up, all the other D tackle contracts we've seen. Now, you could argue it's more like 20 because he's more in the Javon Hargrave area and Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver didn't get 20. So you could argue that and be reasonable. I think it's a significant loss. I don't think it's like, oh my God, Miami's going 6-11 next year. But I think it's a significant loss. Whenever I looked at the Dolphins, I thought he was one of the best players in the team.
Oh yeah, for sure. And again, this is part of adding Weaver as your new defensive coordinator. And we don't know what he sees and what he wants to do. So that's the other thing that may end up being part of this decision making. Like, no, I think we can do this instead and go with. Problem is, you're paying a guy double that doesn't produce better stats than Zach Sealer. And that's kind of crazy to give a guy 25 when the guy you're paying less than 11 outplayed you last year. That's effed up.
Well, you're right. I mean, look, Sealer had a great year at 10 sacks, but to your point about Wilkins, like
he had an interception, he had a touchdown, he had more forced fumbles.
He did.
He had a better. I think he might have had more solo tackles, maybe. But he just had a better year overall. And it's hard to pay one guy 11 and then go pay the other guy who produces slightly less, not by much, but you're giving him double the money, dude. Then you're going to have, if Sealer goes out and busts out again, you know he's knocking your door going, no, we got to rework this thing. You're paying that guy 25 and I produce more than he does. That creates a problem.
Well, their numbers last year are really similar. Like if you go and look at them, so I mean, Wilkins had one more quarterback hit. He had one less tackle for loss. He had 6 more solo tackles, and he had 1 fewer sack. I mean, they're very similar. The one thing though that's interesting though is very much like Wilkins. Sealer was not a pass rusher really before last year. I mean, he never had more than 3.5 sacks. So look, it's tough. I think Wilkins is going to be in demand because if Chris Jones doesn't get to the market, he's the best defensive tackle out there because Matt Nabike was tagged. And if Jones does get to free agency, then somebody's going to pay Jones $30 million a year, and then Wilkins will get his. And if Jones leaves Kansas City, I wouldn't be surprised if Wilkins goes to Kansas City. Honestly, I mean, the Chiefs are going to have they basically have you and me right now at D tackle if Jones leaves. So they're going even with your foot, they're starting you. So
yeah, but I don't believe that, dude. I think Jones is staying, dude. Please.
If I had to bet $1,000, would say that I think that
Snead could get ugly. Okay, that one you may have to part ways.
Snead, I think they're going to trade, but here's the rub of all that. Not to go down that road. If they don't get Chris Jones back, then I think they'll pay Snead. Right. I think they'll then they'll okay fine pay him. But the Jones thing, if I had to bet $1,000, I wouldn't first off, but I would say okay, yeah, I think they'll figure it out. Every day that passes is one more day that it's more and more difficult to see it happen. Because if he gets to the open market, he's gone. They are not going to pay him what some other team will pay him. They won't. Like they're not going to give him over $30 million a year. It's not going to happen. And I can see the Texans or the Raiders or somebody like that going, we'll give you 4 and 120. And the Chiefs are not giving him 4 and 120. So I think, with every passing day, the odds of him staying in Kansas City decrease just a little bit.
I think it's a gamble to sign him. Another team. I almost feel like you'll get the guy that he's got his championships and he's here to collect his big ass check. If he stays in Kansas City, I think he plays with that passion that you need every down. If he goes to another team, I think it'll be a really dangerous scenario for another team. I think you might get a good year out of him. And then after that, I could see a guy that says, man, I've already paid my dues. I've got my championship. I'm kind of coasting here. That's the thing. I don't know. What do you think? You've been more around Chris Jones than I ever will be. What do you think about that?
I think he'll still play really hard. I think the thing that would be hard for Chris, just knowing him just a little bit, is he is so competitive. He's so – obviously, you're that level of a player. You're that competitive. If he goes to a team that's not good –
that's what I mean.
That is going to be – I don't think he'd be a malcontent by any means. He's a great guy. Oh. I think he'd be miserable. If he goes to the Raiders and they're going 6-11 every year and the Chiefs are still beating them, and I just think he will be like, F this, man.
Although he fits with that head coach.
He does. I wrote one of my pieces last week at SI. If the Chiefs don't sign him, I think the Raiders should. I think the Raiders should give him every dime he wants. That would be the thing. If he goes to like Houston or something and he's in the mix, I think he'll be great. I still think he'll be great if he goes to a bad team. I just think personally he would be miserable. I think it would drive. He was miserable with them. There were multiple games this year where he was screaming at other guys on that defense, and they were 3 series into the game, including the Super Bowl, by the way. Where he just doesn't put up with it. So I will tell you this. I think if they lose him from their standpoint,
oh God. Yeah, no.
You're not recovering from that.
Yeah, you're not the same team anymore because
you're then going to have to go back the other way and say we're going to score 35 points a game because
you're losing Mahomes, basically. It's Mahomes on defense, bro.
Yeah, right. I just don't see. Look, I'm not dumb enough to sit here and say they couldn't win a Super Bowl. They have Mahomes, they could, but it will become much more difficult. And defensively, they will go from second in the league, I would think, to outside the top 10. That guy changes everything about the team. They
won because of the defense this year.
They did, no question. No question.
Defense is what carried the Chiefs this year. Even though they have Pat Mahomes, it's the effing defense that was a monster. They were way more consistent than the offense, and you could count on them on a consistent basis week in and week out, bro.
Yes.
So to me, that Chris Jones, you can't. I don't think they lose Chris Jones, bro. I think he wants it. Just you get a feeling like he where he really could have left the last time. Where this time I think he's kind of in a place like, bro, this is a great place for me to finish my legacy and add another championship or two and stay with this guy. And I think for him, I think he's reached, it's a business and then he's got to play hardball with his agent and all that bullshit. But I don't know, man. I kind of get the feeling that those two are going to come to an agreement. I really do.
I would tend to agree. I will say one thing that I think if there's a tiebreaker, he really wants to be there.
Of course.
Like he really, privately also, like really wants to be in Kansas City.
He passionately loves that place.
Yes, he does. Well, because he loves Spags and he loves Joe Cullen as defensive line coach. And I think there's a real, we need to get it done here. The question is, do they offer enough to make that happen? But I think if they get close, I will tell you last year during that whole holdout, we talked about this a lot, but that holdout did not end well for him. And he was pretty vocal about the fact he wasn't thrilled the way everything went down. I just think in the end, if they're close, I think he is going to be the tiebreaker personally and say, look, get this done. I'm done with this. Like, get this contract done, which I know for fans, you might say, like, well, wouldn't that happen everywhere? A lot of players just are told by their agents, hey, look, this is the highest amount of money, and they sign it. I think with Jones, I think he's a little more invested in this, being the last big deal he's going to sign. And I think if he can get a reasonably fair deal here, I think he'll sign it. The question is, will the Chiefs give it to him? So far, they haven't.
You're expecting somebody to give Wilkins 25 plus? Because I think somebody will. I think a lesser team that wants to make a splash.
I think 25 is that real high water mark. I think it's like between 22 and 25. Yeah. Okay. But I think somebody's going to give it to him. I mean, $490, something like that. I mean, the weird thing with Wilkins, though, is, he's coming off that rookie deal, but he's 29 years old. Like, it's not like he's 26 coming off a rookie deal.
Right.
So
this is his last contract, like big contract. After that,
he came into the league.
He's playing year to year or maybe a 2-year deal.
Right, no question. I mean, he came into the league as a much older rookie than most guys. So, yeah, I do think somebody will give. I'm not kidding. I think Kansas City loses Jones. I think they'll sit there and offer him $490. I mean, they're gonna need him. But the one thing that is interesting about all D tackles this year, and Chris Jones probably the exception because of who he is. But look at all the guys who signed the D tackle in the last year, right? I mean, so Matabike, he got tagged, but you have him out there who now is under contract at a big number. You have Deron Payne, you have Jeffrey Simmons, you have Dexter Lawrence. You have Quinnen Williams. I mean, Javon Hargrave signed for big money. I mean, you've seen a lot of defensive tackles get paid, and they were all right in that one window, right around $25 million. Hargrave was 20. That is precluding maybe a guy like Leonard Williams out of Seattle or Wilkins getting huge money, because a lot of these teams that have already wanted to spend money on that position have done it. So, right. We'll see what happens. I do think, though, yes. I think some team will offer him, 22, 24 a year, something like that.
I've been saying that the Dolphins should go after Derrick Henry because I kind of think they need a thunder to Mostert and Achan's lightning. And maybe that would actually convince Mike McDaniel at times to stick with the run. So he's got, that monster there. So you look at the running back market. Brother, there's going to be 10 running backs on the market, a ton of running backs. How bad is that for the running back class that's available in free agency? Because one, the league doesn't value that position anymore. They don't really like to pay money to that position. And now there's going to be a shit ton of running backs available. Yeah.
There are. I mean, when you look at the market, we just did our top 50 list over at SI, the top 50 free agents with projections, by the way. So you go have fun, check that out. I would say that the running back market's fascinating because the draft class for running backs is atrocious. I have not met with one person in the league who says that they think this is a good class of backs. It's not. But there are a lot of veterans out there. Tony Pollard's out there, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler. On down the line, there are a lot. There are a lot of guys. There's another guy I'm not even thinking. Josh Jacobs is hitting the market. So there's I believe 5 in our top 50.
Yes.
There's a lot. Henry, Look, I don't expect any of these guys to get paid big money.
By the way, Tony Pollard, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, A.J. Dillon, DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, right. And yeah, I forgot about Swift. And the other guy who's not a free agent but could very well become one soon here is Joe Mixon. So, I mean, you're talking about a ton. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, toss him there. He hasn't been good, but he's a name. Like, there's a lot of guys. Zach Moss was good last year in Indianapolis. Like, really good. Like, really good, yeah. I don't think anybody's getting paid, man. Maybe Barkley's the exception just because he's a name and all that. But like even him
or Henry.
Henry. The only thing is Henry's older. Like, is anybody going to give Henry more than like 2 years. Guaranteed year? I could see it being 2 years, but like it's like one and an option basically.
Right. Maybe a 3-year deal where it's kind of really a 2-year deal, and that third year is kind of to play with the ball.
He's older. Look, I don't hate the idea of putting him on Miami. I think he'd be very interesting.
Dude, he's still phenomenal. Go look at the stats.
I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing that at all. He
played without a quarterback. And I want you to look at something. He's a smart son of a bitch, because go look at his pass catching numbers. They were mediocre for many years. Something happened the last 2 years. He must have been campaigning to catch the ball more. Go look at his catching numbers. His receiving numbers went way up in the last 2 years. And I think he kind of knew that he was going to become a free agent, and he wanted to kind of showcase that he could catch. So he actually is a better receiver, because I didn't look at him much as a receiver either. But then I was watching him, how he's, catching the ball more. And I'm like, okay, maybe somebody will be more attracted to him because he's not so one. I know he's dominant in the one dimension, but if he can also pass catch, then that helps your offense. That helps your play caller, all that kind of stuff. So to me, Derrick Henry is one of those guys that is kind of sneaky, still nasty.
Listen, I'm all for getting Derrick Henry if I can get him for a year and maybe get out of it after 2. But
you guys have won enough, all right? You've won enough.
No, enough. I'm talking about the Chiefs.
Okay. I'm treating you like Tom Brady in the MGM commercial.
Listen, the Chiefs. No, my God, no, the Chiefs. If anybody, I'd like to see the Chiefs go after Eckler because he'll catch 80 passes from Mahomes. But I think Henry would be great, man. I'm just saying, if I'm a GM in the league, like I'd love to get him for a year. If I had to pay him for 2 years, I'd be on the fence about it. My biggest concern with him is he's just, my God, the guy is taking the ball more than anybody in football for the last 5 years or so.
College too. No.
Yeah, right. Even in high school, he had a ton of carries.
Bro, Nick ran his ass into the ground. Dude.
Yes. Wasn't there a game against LSU years ago? He ran like 44 times or some ridiculous thing. I mean, look, he is, to me, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a great player. And if you can get him for a year, I definitely do it. If you can get him for 2, okay, maybe. But no, I think he'd be a good fit. And I think Barkley gets paid the most. The guy I'm interested on is Jacobs, because Jacobs won the rushing title in 2022. And last year was awful. Like literally one of the worst running backs statistically in the NFL last year, who got more than like 150 carries. What does he get? Like, does anybody give him more than a 1-year deal? That's because you got to think Jacobs was a guy that they declined the option on him.
Yeah.
And then he went out and won the rushing title.
Yeah, I never understood the lack of respect for Josh Jacobs in the Raiders. I never understood that. And around the league, I think at times people didn't appreciate him as a player. And I think he needs to go somewhere where they can showcase him, because I think he's got crazy skills, dude.
I would love to see him behind a really good offensive line. Like, if I'm the Cowboys, I'd be like, hey, Josh, you want to come over here for 2 and 18? Like, we'll put you behind an offensive line that actually can move some people and see what happens. I'm with you. Like, the Raiders' offensive line outside of Colton Miller.
Oh, and you didn't have a quarterback.
Right. So everybody's 8 in the bottom.
An offensive line, they're looking at it going, oh, it's only Jacobs. All we got to do is double the receiver, and let's just focus on Jacobs, double the receiver, and it's over. There's nothing else to do with the Raiders. You're done.
No, I don't disagree. It'd be interesting to see how that would shake if he actually got to a team that could block. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who gets paid, if anybody, out of this running back class, because there's a lot of vets out there. And as you know, over the last couple of years, who's getting paid? Nobody's getting paid. Nobody. I mean, Jonathan Taylor had to go to the mat to get a new contract. It's not a good time to be a running back in the NFL.
Yeah, no, that's why I asked, because one, I want Henry here. I think Henry would be the perfect fit for this scheme, and maybe it'll give Mike a little bit more discipline on staying with the run, because you can punish the shit out of people with that guy. Plus the play action that would come Tua's way would be so freaking glorious, dude. It would be so fun to watch. You know what I'm saying? I mean, having Henry there, that would be absolutely amazing. What did you hear in the combine? What'd you hear about any free agents? You hear anything on the Dolphins side? Well, give me some nuggets. Give me something that you heard from the combine.
Yeah, look, you hear a lot of stuff. I mean, a few of the things kind of just going around the league. A lot of people believe that Denver loves Bo Nix and could take him at 12. That would be interesting. I mean, Peyton openly talks about wanting a guy that plays from the pocket primarily. Well, Bo Nix fits that. I think there's an expectation that Bo Nix is going to go off the board right around that spot. So that's one thing. Staying with quarterbacks in the draft, Caleb Williams for the Bears is the biggest slam dunk in the world. This idea that the Bears aren't going to take him, they're going to trade out.
On number 2, bro. That's really being number 2 is the tough decision.
Yes, yes. Drake May, Jaden Daniels, yes.
The number 1 that's not even a conversation.
You'd be amazed how many people they'll come up to you and go, well, what do you think they're going to do? I mean, I'm based out here in Chicago, believe me. That is a question I get every single day from people who know what I do for a living. And I tell them every single day, you're taking Caleb Williams. That's what's going to happen. The more interesting nugget out of that is the market for Fields has not developed the way they were hoping. And so are they going to are they still going to get a second? Are they going to have to take a third? That's something to keep in mind. Then last round, the quarterbacks in the draft, J.J. McCarthy, a lot of people think might work his way into the top 10. The other thing that's interesting that I wrote in my notebook,
I have a problem with all those guys that high. Penix, JJ.
Penix is the wild card. Some people think he's a top 15 pick. Some people wouldn't take him until 40. So Penix
I all those guys at the back end of the first round, second, because I think they're all projects. Quite frankly,
I tend to agree with you. I agree with you.
It's not that I don't like them.
No, I agree with you.
I like some of their traits, but I would probably take them all.
Yes.
In the back end of the first round, second round, right around there. That's where I would not take you top 10 or 12 or whatever.
But no position gets overdrafted like quarterback. So we're gonna watch those guys go off the board early. The other thing is I talked to a handful of people who said, this draft offensively is insane. Like there's actually a world here where the top 10 picks are all offensive players. Now, I don't know that that's going to happen. I think Dallas Turner might get in that top 10. I think there's a few other guys, who might get in that top 10. Jared Verse being another guy. But I'll tell you, I went back and looked. There has never been a year since the AFL-NFL merger where all top 10 picks were all on one side of the football, ever. And so that would be a first. I wrote that in my notebook for SI last week. But that's something to consider. And then as far as the Dolphins, I think the one guy that Wilkins, it was kind of believed might hit the market. The one guy who was interesting was Andrew Van Ginkel. Like, what happens with him? And there's not really a consensus. Some people, it's the Dolphins are capped out right now. They might have to let him walk and hope Chubb comes back early. And then other people are like, look, he's too important and he's a nice piece and he's not going to break the bank. If I'm the Dolphins, I'd sign Van Ginkel.
I think they're going to sign. And by the way, they're not capped out. They have a ton of flexibility. That is just an overblown statement by people.
That usually is an overblown statement, depending on what team you're talking about. I mean, usually there's a lot of teams that have, in
2 years, in 2 years, they will have problems. But right now, they have all the flexibility that they need. People are just, making shit up. Sensationalism sells. So that's kind of where that comes from.
Do you think? I'll throw a question on you. Do you think they're going to extend Tua? In the next by the draft. 2 weeks.
By the draft. No, by the draft.
By the draft. Okay.
It's too complicated, dude. You know this. It's too complicated to finish a QB contract at this point.
Every once in a while, it happens though.
Yeah, it happens.
It does happen. I think Dak had his done this time of year. A few other guys. So I was curious. Yeah.
But I can see Jerry wanting to make the splash and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
I think this is going to take a little bit, but I think it will be done by the draft. There's no doubt in my mind, because they don't get the X money till June. So they have to open up this space to kind of finish everything out. What I'm looking at is I'm wondering if there's going to be a deal between them and Rob Hunt shortly here. Because if they didn't tag him, because I thought there would be a chance that they would tag him just to kind of hold him and try to work out the deal and not let him get out to the open market. I wonder if they're close on a deal already and they're close to announcing it, and that's why they didn't tag him and didn't have to use the tag on him. That's one guy there, but I think AVG will be re-signed by them.
I think it should be.
Because of the Phillips and Chubb thing.
Yes.
You don't know when you're getting those guys back. You got to have him there helping you in the pass rush while those guys are out.
I agree. I'm curious to see how Grier goes about opening up the money, because right now they still have to open up like 20, a little less than 20. So
they have plenty of options to do it.
Oh, they do. Of course. Listen, you can always, you can always restructure a guy. You can always extend the guy. I mean,
there's guys to cut still. There's still guys to cut that they can open up more space to.
They can. I mean, so no, listen, I'm with you. I think a lot of times this time of year, all that stuff's overblown, but it's always kind of interesting to watch how it all falls.
Yeah. What do you got going on Sports Illustrated so folks can check you out?
Man, I've been doing nothing but writing about free agency. So the top 50 list is now out and live. Went out right after the tag deadline yesterday. That was fun, by the way, as we were rewriting about 8 of those posts because they kept tagging players. We really should have anticipated a little better. But that's live. That's up. And then next week, I'm going to be doing grades. And also, like, grades are kind of my baseline thing that I'll be doing because you got to do it. But then I'm going to have columns going out. Myself and Connor Orr, for us, are going to be writing the main takeaways and reactions. Like, if there's a big signing, we'll have a takeaway for you in a column form. So I hope people will check that out.
There you go. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, as always, thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
You got it. There you go. Matt Verderame, always getting it done.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.